Chapter 17. The Superlink would take her to the Adirondack Park, where she knew resistance groups were hiding. If she found no one there to help her, she might continue on into Canada. Hopefully she'd be able to cross the border without trouble. The Superlink blazed like daylight, but she'd never hitched a ride before, and the tractor-trailer sped by so fast she couldn't imagine them ever being able to stop for her. They kicked up a hot wind that blew pebbles and debris into her face and knocked her back. By sunrise, the stolen shoes had blistered her feet beyond walking, so she tossed them in the woods behind her. Making herself a nest of old leaves amongst the trees, she lay down to a dreamless sleep. Hunger and daylight woke her several hours later. Standing, she saw a global officer's car pass, and she stepped behind a tree. Maybe she should go back. What was the sense of running? She hadn't killed her mother. Her only crime was not having the barcode. They'd tattoo her, of course, and it would cast its shadow on everything she tried to do with her life. Still, she might be okay for a while, like Amber. She'd still be able to buy things like food and gas. With the tattoo, she might even patch things up with Ezekiel. If that happened, she could possibly even move in with him. It shocked her that she would even think like that. After what she knew about him, how could she? But she pictured his handsome face, his large brown eyes, and despite what had happened, she longed to feel his arms around her. It was hard to fall out of love with him when everything had happened so suddenly. But why couldn't he have just told her the truth, that he was a member of Tattoo Gin? Had he ever even loved her at all, or was it all some manipulative seduction, a trap? In the distance, truck brakes squealed, and Kayla looked forward towards the sound. Peering through the trees, she saw the orange roof of a super eatery. The road stops that appeared about every 20 or so miles along the Superlink. Stones cut her bare feet as she made her way through the woods to the super eatery. They wouldn't let her in barefoot, so she went and found the painful shoes. Putting them on brought tears to her eyes. Although each step was torture, in 10 long minutes she was nearly to the eatery. It was turning into a warm day, and she slipped the jacket off. She stepped into the restaurant, and the warm smell of bacon cooking and the friendly chatter of people made her long for normal life. At the slick, bright orange counter, she ordered a cup of tea. The waitress looked at her skeptically, which reminded Kayla how bad she looked with her knotted, tangled hair, scraped face, and dirty, rumpled man's outfit. On the wall above the counter, a large flat screen played the news station. A blonde woman in a bright pink suit in the corner of the screen recounted recent newsworthy events. President Loudon Waters' face appeared behind the woman. He was receiving honors for a scientific society for lifting all ban on human cloning, saying it was long overdue and that the fear of cloning was a remnant of the past. Kayla wasn't sure how she felt about it, but at the moment she had other things on her mind. The tea arrived and felt like hot silk going down. Her plan was to finish it and then make her phone call to the global officers to turn herself in. Another story came on about the latest space shuttle. It was now making regular stops to the new station on the moon. This shuttle was carrying a team of scientists experimenting with the impact of weightlessness on cell division. Kayla stopped listening. She needed a plan as to what to say to the global officers. Where would she claim to be living now? Technically, she was still a minor until she turned 18. There was no relative she could go to. Would the global officers want to put her in some kind of institution? Juvenile hall? The thought made her shudder. How would she survive in a place like that? She couldn't go. There wasn't a chance. Stop. If that's what you have to do, you have to do it, she forced herself to think. She had to call them. It was the only sensible thing. The woman on the flat screen kept talking, and Kayla half listened as she finished the tea. Due to another terrorist threat, the mayor of Washington, D.C. was proposing that a protective wall be built around the city to help defend in a case of emergency. I have conferenced with President Waters on this, and he fully endorses the measure, the mayor explained to a reporter. The news cut away to a commercial for a new holographic screen that would present programs as though you were watching a play in your own home. The characters would be about half the size of real people, and Kayla had to admit it was pretty impressive. The programs will probably all be sponsored by Global One, though, she thought. Though, she responded. She imagined her own vision of their ad. Global One bringing you all the barcode to offer. Total invasion of privacy, reaching down into the very intimate spiral of your DNA. Looking away, she scanned the group for someone who looked approachable enough to ask to borrow their phone. Her mother once told her that when she was young, she could find a public phone, insert a metal coin, and make a call. It had never existed in Kayla's lifetime, but she wished it did. A public phone would have solved her problems now. An elderly couple in a booth caught her attention. The woman was heavy with a halo of white fluff in her hair, and the man, though very old, was still strong-looking with a shiny bald head. They spoke to each other pleasantly as they ate their pancakes. Kayla considered approaching them, but as she got up from her seat, a familiar voice made Kayla freeze. Then slowly, turning towards the flat screen, Nedra was on the screen. She told me she planned to set the fire, the girl told the reporter. I didn't believe she'd really do it, though. If I had called the global officers immediately. What sort of crazy type? Always thinking and saying weird things, you know? She often talked about how much she hated her mother, but I never thought she'd try to kill her. Kayla covered her mouth with her hand as shock and disbelief swept through her. Her picture filled the screen. It was her school picture, the way she'd looked last September. Her brown hair glistened with its neat blue streaks, brushed to a sheen, and her expression was open and carefree. Kayla barely recognized herself. Hopefully no one else would either. Global officers have been searching for Kayla Marie Reed since May 22nd. The blonde announced. She is wanted for arson in connection with Ashley Reed's death in the fire. Kayla got off her stool and backed up. She had to get out of there. She whirled around and crashed into a waitress with a tray of hot coffee. The coffee splashed on her, burning her arm and hand. "Sorry," the waitress cried. Another waitress hurried out from behind the counter with ice wrapped in a towel. She guided Kayla to a stool and pressed the ice towel on her arm. The cold towel covered the fake tattoo, and Kayla was grateful that she had it. "Thank you," she told the waitress. Another waitress arrived with a first aid kit. "I have something that's great for burns," she said. "It's the latest thing just come out." In a flash, she smeared the cool cream on Kayla's arm. Kayla watched in horror as the cream smeared and blurred the black lines of her fake barcode. She clamped her opposite hand over the ruined fake. "I have to go," she said, getting off the stool. "You should sit a while," one of the waitresses urged her, not seeming to have noticed the damage to the tattoo. "No, thanks. I can't," Kayla insisted, hurrying away from the waitresses. Kayla kept her head down, barely daring to breathe, and she rushed to the front lobby, then checked to see if anybody was looking at her. Life seemed to be going on as usual. She noticed no one approaching, no one staring. She was interested to see a robotic cashier in the lobby. She'd read that the super eateries would be using them. Robots had been used to do construction and fancy work for years now, but they had recently become sophisticated enough for more high-level jobs. This seems like a lucky break. A robot wouldn't remember seeing her. Kayla paid with the e-car and walked out into the parking lot, blinking against the morning sun. Her stolen shoes bit into her heels, and her burned arm throbbed. A global officer's car came off the Superlink and slowly cruised the lot. Kayla turned her back towards it. Her every instinct was to run, but she knew she would only draw attention. A green hybrid electric gas car stood beside her. Kayla noticed a strap of red plaid sticking out of its door. The car couldn't be locked with that material wedged in it, so moving closer, she opened the door and slipped into the back seat. The red plaid belonged to a blanket, and Kayla squeezed down into the space behind the front seat, curling up in the tightest ball she could manage. Then reached up, she pulled the blanket over her. She could hide this way and maybe even, if no one noticed her, catch a ride far north. "Stop!" Outside the car, a voice yelled angrily, "Stop this minute!" Someone opened the car door and jumped in, quickly starting the engine. "Come on," he shouted to another person rushing into the passenger side of the car. Kayla didn't look to see who was driving at the car as the car shot out of the parking lot at top speed. At almost the same time the car started, a global officer's siren shrieked.